This quarter, I'm starting a new project called Affordance Aware Computing. And the goal of my project is to develop an API and a set of design principles for how can we use this affordance aware computing to increase user engagement in a variety of experiences and a variety of applications. So an affordance is a possibility of action. So when I say affordance aware computing, that's using knowledge of the physical world to determine what action a user can perform in their surroundings. So for example, the collective experience app could ask users to sit down and participate in a people watching activity. And if the app is affordance aware, it could think, okay, what situations can people do it in? We can send that notification to users who are on a busy sidewalk because a busy sidewalk affords people watching, and are near a bench because a bench affords a place to sit down. So those two affordances are available. So if a user is in a situation, with that environment, they'll send the notification. And because they are immediately able to participate, that will make them more likely to engage in the experience. So, why do we care about being affordance aware? Like I said, if the barrier is lower for participating in experience, users will be more likely to do it. This can lead to users interacting in their environment in interesting and meaningful ways, better and more crowdsourced data, interesting gaming opportunities, collective experiences that help users feel connected to others, and many more examples. Some of my goals for this quarter are to create a proof of concept by building out a basic version of an API that can take in information from an app and then can return a context that determines if an experience should be triggered for users. And to design and test this kind of API and these experiences that I come up with, I will use the collective experience framework. And I'll actually be using a lot of the existing collective experiences and be kind of tweaking those to make them affordance-based. So if this is successful for end users, this will lead to a collective experience in the collective experience app. All of this quarter is in the context of the collective experience app. And for others building on the technology, the collective experience team will be able to get higher user participation, allowing them to get better feedback when they're iterating on their framework and the experiences. And in the future, this API could also be used for low effort sensing, microminders, or habit sourcing. Just a few of the DTR projects that it could also be applicable for. And in terms of researchers in general, it can help researchers better target users and increase participation in information crowdsourcing. And also the affordance information that can be collected could be interesting in terms of mapping the world in new ways, and how can we look at maps differently if map isn't just physical objects, but also how you interact with those physical objects, kind of what implications does that have for how we create maps. So some design goals for this quarter. Again, these are all in the context of the collective experience app. And then future goals include how can we expand and generalize this research so it applies to other DTR projects and other contexts in general. So one current problem with the collective experience app for users is they often fail to participate simply because it's not convenient to participate. So if we can lower the barrier for participating in experiences, we can bring users more of the small joys that the collective experience app hopes to bring them. So I think users are going to be more likely to participate in experiences. They're already in a situation where they are immediately able to participate. Then you get the notification, you're like, oh, I can do this right now. And when you get the notification, your attention's caught for a second, and before we lose your attention, you're already able to participate and complete that experience. So the design process is I want to start by testing out a few experiences that only require a few affordances, and then build to more complex or experiences that are more complex and have more situational context and require more affordances. So I'm also curious to see what's the best way for designers to tie affordances to their experiences. When the collective experience group brought out all their experiences, they weren't related to affordances, and I kind of went back and tried to add in the affordances. And also, what affordances are most impactful for increasing participation? Does it matter more for does the affordance of objects, like physical objects, matter more, or is it more like the situational affordances? Affordances in regards to there being a lot of people, or affordances based on the weather, like which affordances matter more? And some technology goals is I want to have an API that will gather information. So that's things like time, location, accelerometer data. Take all that input in, use a set of external APIs such as Yelp, Google Places, weather, to map that information to affordances, and also just map it directly from information that we have gathered. So it will collect all that information, and then once it has it, it will map it to affordances by going through a world affordance database that kind of says, oh, like if this is of type restaurant, it affords being able to take a picture of food. If this is of type bench, it affords being able to sit down. It's kind of having this layer that takes objects and maps them to affordances by going through this database. And then once we have a set of affordances that are available, we want to map those to experiences by accessing a database of experiences. So a huge thing we'll be thinking about, how do we design an experience database, how do we design a world affordance database, and how do we make those extensible as we start adding more affordances and different kinds of experiences, and how do those stay flexible. And then once we have experiences, we want to be able to trigger the experience and collect user data. So if I ask you to go sit down on a bench and do some people watching, do you actually do that? Can we look kind of at your emotions? Maybe there was a bench that I saw that I thought you would sit down on, but you actually found a rock that was also a good place to sit on. How can we record that information? Because, hey, now we know that there's a rock you can sit on, and that also provides the same affordance. And so we want to evaluate the presence of affordances, see where you completed the interaction, and then store the information back in world affordances so we know we've had success. So some research goals and some research questions are, how can we use this affordance-aware computing to encourage users to interact in the physical world, and what types of affordances are most effective at increasing user participation? This kind of ties back to the design arguments. Also, how can we write collective experiences that best connect with an affordance map of the world, and how can we help designers attach affordances to their experience? So is that like translating the existing collective experiences into affordance-aware collective experiences? And lastly, why is it important to think of the world in terms of affordances, not objects? Why is it you can sit on something and not there's a bench? So these are just some of the central, most basic questions to focus on why the research is meaningful and kind of prove affordance-aware as a concept. And so my first hypothesis, I want to focus on this quarter, like I've been saying, is if we can make collective experience notifications affordance-aware, we can increase participation rates. And I think in order to effectively get users to interact with the physical world, we need to know not just the static affordances in their environment, but also the state of their environment currently. So things like weather, things like human traffic, and what kind of affordances those offer. So to test this, I plan to take the existing collective experiences, rewrite them based on affordances, and then compare participation rates from this collective experience study they ran in the spring. And kind of if I can line up in parallel and see, are there big changes? Were those changes because it was affordance aware? And hopefully we can be able to keep enough of the other constraints the same to be able to show that. So if we look at the collective experience, their spring study. So they had a whole set of different experiences, and then they had results of who participated in it, and a lot of kind of notes and analysis about why users chose to participate or why users didn't choose to participate. And then they did a second round of study with some of the same experiences, but a lot of new experiences too. So I took some of their experiences and added a few things onto it. So one example is, My Precious, upload a picture of your favorite things you own and tell us a little bit about it. So I know for me personally, most of my favorite things are in my room. So if I'm in my room, that affords access to those possessions, I'd be more likely to participate in that experience if I was at home. Whereas if I was walking to class, I wouldn't really have my favorite things around me. I wouldn't be able to take a picture of it. Similarly, like book club, when it says start reading a book at the top of your reading list, well, all my books are in my room. So if I'm in my room, that affords access to my bookcase. That affords being able to be able to take that book and take a picture of its cover. Bon appetit, let's take a picture of the food you've ordered, and they tried to do that by working with the Yelp API to only send people who were near restaurants. But they didn't have much success. I think there were no users in the area to participate. So I want to try that one again. If you're in a restaurant that affords taking a picture of food, also if it's around mealtime, that affords a busier restaurant, and that means we're more likely to have users who are in the restaurant who can participate. So that's kind of just my overall plan for the quarter. Really the goal is to create a prototype of several experiences, and having the framework and the API have a very basic level at every single stage, so I can really test it from start to finish all the way through. And then once I have that, really start iterating and designing those experiences and seeing why affordance matters and how they affect our participation rates.